welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me. Today is Wellness Wednesday, and as you may or may not know, I release new wellness content every week on Wednesdays, hence the name. So be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss anything and so that you can stay in the flow, right? We are working on a series right now, finishing up with Kapha Dosha. And we just learned about Vata and Pitta the last couple weeks, and it is now time to bring everything home. So we are going to talk about what is Kapha Dosha exactly, how can you identify Kapha in a person, and what steps can you take to balance Kapha, right? These are all very important. And, even if you are not Kapha, somebody you know is. And what's so cool is that when you learn the doshas, you are learning a new way of seeing, understanding, and interacting with the world. And it's just so cool because you will understand the psychology of your friends better, you will understand what they need, and you will overall become more compassionate because then instead of saying things like, oh, my friend is so lazy, you can say things like, oh, my friend has a lot of kapha that needs to be balanced. So it removes a lot of the judgment from our vocabulary and instead becomes a neutral descriptor of our human friends and ourselves. So one very powerful thing to think about as we discuss. Okay, jumping right in, what is Kapha Dosha? So remember, just as a recap, we have three doshas. We have Vata, which is air and ether. We have Pitta, which is fire and water. And then we have Kapha, which is earth and water. So earth and water is the stability and mass of your body. It is the bulk of your organism, in contrast to Pitta, which is really more about digestion and transformation, and Vata, which is all about movement. Now we need all of these principles working together and hopefully in harmony so that we can experience the world as a human being. So remember, we all have all three doshas, but to varying degrees. And when I say somebody is Vata, I either can mean one of two things. They are Vata dominant or they have a Vata imbalance. Similarly, if I say someone is Kapha, they could be Kapha dominant or be Kapha imbalanced. So just a little grain of salt, a caveat, so that you can deepen your understanding and use this more practically. Because without that little bit of knowledge, you can get very confused very easily and perhaps even employ principles of Ayurveda incorrectly. Okay, so Kapha Dosha. How do we know a Kapha person? Well, physically, Kapha people hold more mass. And I don't necessarily mean obese, although that would be considered an imbalance of Kapha Dosha. I mean, they're just like sturdy, They are natural athletes. They are those people that I train acro yoga with that are like the base that can hold a 300-pound man up in a handstand. I mean, these people got some strength. Kapha naturally has a lot of stamina, right? So remember when we talked about a candle representing all of the doshas, right? The flame and the wind that's fanning the flame is the Vata part, and then the heat of the flame and the burning of the flame is the Pitta part, and then the fuel is Kapha. So like Kapha has the most fuel to get things done. Now, Kapha also has a tendency to not get things done all the time because they need a little push, right? Like earth is heavy, water is heavy. It's hard to move those things. So sometimes they need a little motivation. Like Kapha people will do really, really well with the coach, a personal trainer. And that will really help them unleash some of their potential. Whereas Pitta, it's like you need a personal relaxation trainer and Vata just needs some structure. So how do we balance Kapha dosha and how do we increase Kapha dosha? So Kapha is the sweet flavor, right? Which is made up of earth and water. It's heavy substances like ghee, rice, like these are considered sweet foods, not just sugar. That's something else. Heavier fruits like mango has some Kapha qualities. Wheat is very heavy. Dairy is very Kapha. Most meats have a Kapha component. So these are the heavier foods that will create mass in the body and are very useful to understand if you have like a Vata imbalance, because Vata and Kapha have a lot of opposite qualities. So if you're very, thin, weak, and anxious, you want to employ more Kapha activities and use those kinds of heavier foods in your diet, provided you can digest them. Now, how do we understand that for Kapha dosha, and how can we use that to bring balance to a Kapha person? So if you tend towards this kind of like sluggish, slow feeling, don't eat a lot of heavy foods. This is when you want to employ the opposites of Vata dosha. So you want to eat light foods. You want to do activities where you're moving a lot. This is going to be really, really good for Kapha. And remember, Kapha has the strength. So there's this this mythical food guide pyramid, and there's a mythical breakfast should be your biggest meal of the day thing that is rampant in the Western world. And Kapha people can really skip breakfast, right? Like if they're not hungry, don't make them eat. They don't need to, because they'll also often have slow digestion. And this is partially what contributes to their propensity to build more mass, right? Remember that your digestion is like a fire. So if your fire is really low and you put a big log in there, it won't get burned up, right? You'll have chunks left over. And this is what happens in the bodies of Kapha people who have slow digestion, right? They eat food, but it doesn't really get burned up and used, so they just store it. Like it's not being burned up completely. And this is why it's very important to be mindful of your digestion as a Kapha person. Like, are you really hungry, or are you eating just because it's time? So something really important to think about. And lastly, but not least, the psychological components of Kapha. So Kapha is just like so sweet and loving and kind when in a balanced state. And it's these gentle giants that really epitomizes Kapha dosha. Like I used to work in venues when I was in college, and we had all these big security guys, but like they were like the sweetest people ever, and people would be scared because they're like, dude, you're like 7 feet tall, but they were so gentle. And this is what we see. So like your Kapha friend will give you the best hugs and will just be like a soft pillow. So we love Kapha. People in the West all want to be skinny mini, but it's nice when you got some cushion in your tushin. Is that like a thing people say? I don't know. So that's Kapha in a nutshell. Please let me know if you have any questions by commenting below, and be sure to tag your favorite Kapha friend who always has cookies, candy, and chocolate around and gives the best hugs and has big, beautiful eyes and soft skin and never gets wrinkles, right? This is Kapha. Thank you so much for joining. I will see you next Wednesday. All right, have a beautiful day.